Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again. Thank you for joining us. We are back again for another virtual town hall for the Department of Labor. Again, if you haven't joined us before, we are doing these in an effort to reach out to you as businesses and self-employed individuals across the state of Vermont amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Kyle Tweet, and I'm the Communications and Outreach Coordinator for the department. I'll be moderating today, and just kind of as a plug for the initial before we get to Cameron Wood, our Director of Unemployment Insurance, for an update. We'll be taking questions this afternoon, so please, in the right-hand column of your screen, please feel free to post questions, and I'll be reviewing those for Cameron to answer for you. As always, this recording or this webinar will be recorded. We do try to post them as quickly as possible to our YouTube channel, but you may also access the full recording through this link that you accessed the webinar through. You can just come back to it later in the day and rewatch it. We are also working on implementing these onto our website as well. So with that, please, as another plug, please post your questions on the right-hand side, and we'll get to as many as we can this afternoon in our abbreviated town hall with Cameron. So with that, I will introduce Cameron Wood. He is our Director of Unemployment Insurance, and has been very busy over the last few weeks. So with that, Cam, I guess if you want to just provide just a brief update for folks on where we are with unemployment insurance in terms of employers and maybe some CARES Act as well.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Just want to start off, as I usually do, by thanking everyone who's on the call. We here at the department understand that all Vermonters are impacted by the events of COVID-19 and the stay-at-home orders, not just individuals who are seeking benefits from the department, but also employers, as you are closed down in most instances, are worried about your own workforce, and also trying to understand if there's anything available to you as a Vermonter as well. So just want to thank everybody who's on the call. We understand that there's a lot of frustration about not being able to access department services in some cases. And please know that we have done everything that we can to assist as many individuals as we can on a daily basis. That includes bringing in additional staff from other agencies, bringing in staff from private employers. We actually have people from Green Mountain Power, Vermont Gas, Efficiency Vermont, among others, who are assisting us with calls intake. So definitely appreciate the efforts that they're putting in as well. We've had a lot of private employers reach out and try to assist. And so we're also exploring options about bringing on contracted personnel to assist with calls intake. So please understand that we're doing everything we can as quickly as we can, and we hope to be providing more assistance within the coming days to weeks as we move through this. So appreciate everybody being on the call. I'll start by just giving a brief update of some questions I've received from employers over the past few days and how they can continue to assist the unemployment insurance program. I'll also do a quick update of the CARES Act, specifically the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, and where the department stands with that, as that will be an access point for individuals who are self-employed or independent contractors to be able to provide them with some relief through this pandemic. So, and then I think we'll turn it back over to Kyle for some Q&A. For starters, for employers out there, the best thing you can do right now to assist any of your employees who have been laid off or furloughed in collecting unemployment is to work with the department when we reach out to you for information. So a lot of individuals are trying to file who may be part-time earners and we need additional wage information from you as the employer to help make that individual monetarily eligible for benefits. I mentioned in a previous call, one of the reasons we have not pushed back the first quarter wage report deadline is because we need those reports. We need those wage reports in order to help ensure that people who are filing for benefits are eligible for those benefits. So not only do we need the reports when they're due, but we have a lot of staff who are on the phones all day, Monday through Saturday, calling employers, trying to get wage information in order to make their employees eligible for benefits. So please, if you get a call from the Department of Labor, somebody reaching out to you for wage record information, they will not be asking you for contributions over the phone. They are just seeking the wage reports in order to get them in the system to make people eligible. So that's one big way that employers can continue to help assist us throughout this time. We've gotten a lot of questions about the separation forms that are going out and whether there's an expectation of those being returned. Please know that right now we are asking employers to return them if possible, because we would use that documentation for any claim that is filed, especially if there is an adverse separation. If an individual has quit, or if you are an essential employer and your individual is choosing not to come to work, we need that information to ensure that they are eligible to receive benefits under these programs. They may or they may not. It depends on whether they fall into some of the high-risk categories. Are you as an employer putting them at an unreasonable risk, etc.? So for those situations, we would like the employers to respond to us if possible. We fully understand that that may not be the case in every instance, and we'll be working with employers going forward as we review that information. So big thing is, please, when we're reaching out, asking for information, if you can, please provide it back to us as quickly as possible so we can ensure the facilitation of benefits for people who are eligible. That's, I think, one of the big things that would help assist the department at this time from an employer's perspective. I'll mention a few other quick things just because I know it's kind of repeat questions or concerns for people who may be new to the town halls. We do have language in state statute change that allows the department to relieve you of benefit charges in the event you have shut down and laid off your employees. So please know that we have that authority, and the main requirement there is that you as the employer rehire or offer to rehire within a reasonable time once these stay-at-home emergency orders are lifted and employers begin to come back online and provide their services to the public. So as long as you have offered to rehire or are rehiring those individuals back, we have the authority to relieve you of those benefit charges. So please know that we don't want employers to be concerned at this point in time about their tax contribution rates being impacted because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Similar for reimbursable employers, there are provisions in the Federal CARES Act that allow for relief up to 50% of the reimbursable charges to your unemployment insurance account. So that's coming from the U.S. Department of Labor. So we do not yet have the guidance on how that will be rolled out to reimbursable employers. But please know that we also have that authority there under the Federal CARES Act. So a few quick updates there. I'll switch over to the CARES Act. We were able to implement the additional $600 of benefits last week. We're still working through some of the details, some of the unique situations, but we were able to implement that. We are beginning to pay people who are filing the additional $600. and we're going to work towards continuing to expand that to other portions of individuals as they become eligible. So, for example, we're working to get the additional 13 weeks programmed into the system for the people who have currently exhausted their benefits. So we're still working on that. As soon as that program is live, they will begin to file and receive the additional $600. And we will provide those retroactive. Same thing for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, or PUA. That program is for people who do not currently meet regular UI eligibility. So mainly individuals who are self-employed or independent contractors, or people who may work part-time and not meet the monetary thresholds for regular UI. All of those individuals, we are still working on that program, and we hope to have some information available to the public within the next few days about next steps for bringing that program online. So again, when that program is live, those individuals who apply for and receive benefits, that we have the ability to make those retroactive as well. So I understand there's a lot of concern. People are trying to feed their families. They don't have income right now. We fully understand that, and we are working as quickly as we can to get these programs up and running, to ensure that when we have the program up and running, it's successful, and we don't have to, try to provide a service and then have something mess up or prohibit us from being able to facilitate payments out the door. So we're trying as best we can to set everything up correctly so it's a successful rollout to all these people who are awaiting information and additional benefits. So Kyle, I'll really leave it there for the self-employed and the CARES Act update. For people who need further information, just know that we are working as diligently as we can. We hope to have more information out in the next few days, and please be checking the department's website for further information. If you have not yet signed up for the newsletter for the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, you can do so on the Department of Labor's website. We would ask you to do so because once we're ready and once the program is live, those individuals will get direct email communication from the department telling them what the next steps are to enroll in that program. So that's the easiest way to get the most up-to-date information whenever we roll this program out. And Kyle, with that, I'll turn it over back to you and answer some questions.
Yeah, that's great, Cam. Thank you so much. I think really just want to take the approach, and you may have hit on some of these things, but I did kind of want to just go through questions as a whole. I know you addressed some of the self-employed. Do we have any idea? And certainly, if the answer to this question is we're still waiting, I think it's helpful for people just to know that we are still waiting. But somebody asked, when will we tell self-employed individuals what documents that we will need to collect? And what information will self-employed people need to have in order to really just tell in communication with us what should they be prepared to, what information should they be prepared to provide?
Yep, great question. So we are still awaiting guidance, and I know that is frustrating and difficult, for people who are trying to prepare. We had a webinar with the U.S. Department of Labor last week, and we have submitted multiple questions to the federal government to help clarify some of these specific questions. What we know currently is for individuals who are self-employed or independent contractors, we don't have your wage information in the UI system because you don't report to the unemployment insurance program, as you're generally not eligible. So under the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, we are supposed to be going by your most recent completed tax year. And the question logically is, are we talking 2019 or 2018? Because many individuals when this pandemic had broke out, probably hadn't filed their 2019 taxes yet. And of course, there was an extension granted for that. So that is one of the questions we have out to the U.S. Department of Labor. If we are required to go off calendar year 2019, what sorts of documentation are we going to require to validate wage information from the individuals applying for the benefits? So my advice right now is if you have 2019 tax return information, that would be the best form of documentation. Separate from that, we would be looking at any type of 1099 information for independent contractors, any type of further invoicing information that can demonstrate the wages that you charge or the wages that you earned. Lastly, if you don't have any of that type of documentation, we will be looking at some form of self-attestation or signed affidavit from the individual. And that's what we're still trying to wait for guidance and work with USDOL on, is exactly what forms of documentation are acceptable and at what point are we looking at 2018 or is it strictly 2019? And can we rely on a self-attestation from the outset? The program that we are designing will allow you as the individual to upload those documents into the application, and we will actually require some form of documentation in order to allow you to move forward and file. You will have, I believe it's up to 21 days to provide us with the documentation once you file your initial application claim. So I do think it's a good idea, and I think it's a great question that people are already thinking about, what do I need, so you can have it prepared. And just know that you will have the capacity to upload information, and we will have further guidance when we're ready to roll out about exactly what documents we will accept and what will be required.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. Just to follow up on a question from Fred regarding PUA, in terms of the eligibility, is it true that to be eligible for PUA, one must apply for the regular UI program and be denied? I guess just from your perspective, if you could just share some insight as to the stipulations that CARES and PUA were rolling out about, kind of the eligibility process.
Absolutely. So another thing that we are trying to work out the details with the U.S. Department of Labor, it appears that individuals who do not have any covered wages in the UI system may not be required to file for regular unemployment insurance and be denied, but the specific parameters around that's further guidance that we need from USDOL. And we have asked these questions. I want everybody on, to know that we have asked the questions. We are seeking the answers as quickly as possible. So the short answer is, if you're a part-time worker, somebody who has wages in the UI system, you are an employee, you are very likely going to be required to file for unemployment prior to being moved to the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program, keeping in mind that, we have the additional 13 weeks for those who exhaust their benefits, and we have the additional 13 weeks for people whose benefit year has expired and they didn't have enough wages to requalify. And so that's why for those individuals, employees, we are likely going to have to require them to file for unemployment insurance first. What we are hoping to do is make this as seamless as possible, as simple as possible for self-employed, independent contractors, for these other portions of the population. So we're trying to get a confirmation from USDOL about whether they have to apply for UI or whether they can go directly into the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance Program. And that's one of the things that we hope to have within the next day or two to provide the public as we bring the program online. For the individuals who have already filed for unemployment insurance, you've likely received a denial letter. We aren't asking you to do anything else at this time. We have captured your email address in the UI initial claims application, and so we can reach out to you and let you know you applied, you listed your employer as yourself, and therefore you're now able to go into the pandemic unemployment assistance application and file. So we are awaiting a little bit of guidance. We're not asking anyone to do anything right now, meaning you don't have to go apply for UI. We're not telling you not to if you want to. And know that we'll have further information as we move forward. We're trying to make it as easy as we can for everybody, so you're not having to apply in 2 places at once if you're not required to.
That's great. Thanks, Cam. And I think that answers Don Gold's question as well, just about applying and kind of the next step. So thank you for that on self-employed. Just kind of transitioning back to typical employers. Seems like a lot of employers have questions about the status on behalf of their employees. So I think it might be helpful to go through Len's question. Len asks, my employees applied for unemployment almost 3 weeks ago and can't get through after many attempts to find out what is holding up their claim. Is there an estimate for when the backlog will lessen so that people will be able to get through on the phone? You know, certainly I just from my side, you know, certainly that's something we've been working to address, whether it's through the alphabetical structure and other avenues. But Cam, I think you might be able to provide a little bit more insight from the UI team.
Yep. I think it's great that employers are reaching out on behalf of their former employees. We've actually seen a lot of that over the past week, and you know, I think it's great that there's that appreciation for them and wanting to make sure that they have the supports that are available. Please know that, as I said at the very beginning, you know, we are acutely aware of the struggles these people are facing. You know, we're on the phone with them daily, and we're trying to work as quickly as we can to assist as many people and get them get any issues on their claims resolved so they can move forward and continue to file. What I think we ran into as this ramped up over the past 3 weeks. The system doesn't allow people to file for 2 weeks in a row. So if the individual wasn't able to get in for their first weekly filing, or if the individual misses their weekly filing, it locks them out and they can't go back and file for a prior week. So at that point, there has to be a manual intervention. And you know, please know that we at the department fully understand the frustrations that this causes for people. You know, we are operating on systems that are old. You know, we operate the UI on a mainframe system that's 40 years old. That's not an excuse. I'm just providing information, but we trust us. We are acutely aware of the system limitations that we have. So for employers, I think one thing is just letting your people know that they need to ensure that they're going in and filing on a weekly basis, because if they get behind, that's where it will cause a delay. And then please know that we are doing as quickly as we can, as best as we can, to ramp up additional staff in order to help facilitate the people whose claim is hung up and they can't even continue to file. So one thing we've done, a few things we've done, excuse me, you know, we've thrown all UI staff in some form or another to help assist in claims resolution, whether that's clearing issues, reaching out for wages, or being on the phones. We have set up additional call centers through the supplemental assistance line that goes to the folks at GMP, for Vermont Gas, Efficiency Vermont, to assist. What we've done over the past 2 days is we've begun to train those staff and additional staff from across other state agencies who are now being brought in to join and assist on those lines as well. We are training all of them over the past 2 days. We've had a minimum of, I believe, 4 training sessions over the past 2 days to allow those people to help facilitate claims filing. What we've run into is a lot of people where it says Social Security number is not recognized in the weekly claims application. It's likely because they missed a week of filing and we have to catch them up. And so we've been training all of these staff, all of these people who are on the phones to help assist in that instance, so they can get into our system and start to file these claims for people. So, I would say we've, probably more than doubled by today. Hopefully, moving forward, tripling, quadrupling the number of people who are taking those claims and facilitating people getting caught up. So hopefully we can clear out that backlog much quicker. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to advise employers to reach out to us on behalf of their claimants, because the claimants are already having problems getting in touch with us. So the last thing we want to do is bog down the lines even more. But please know that those are the steps we're taking, i.e. bringing on all these additional people and training them as quickly as we can so they can start to facilitate the clearing of these backlog of behind the claims that people haven't been able to get in and file. So I can't provide a date either as to when we expect to be through, because it just depends on whether claimants continue to file or whether they fall behind. But we are working through as quickly as we can as people call and getting them caught up so they can be on their way to being able to file by themselves via phone or online moving forward.
Great, thank you. Kind of just moving through, had a couple questions, Cam, for you about experience ratings. And I know on our website, we are trying to keep it as up to date as possible. So if the information that is on our website needs to be updated, we certainly will take a look at it. Saying that in regard to one question, that they're reading 2 things. One item on the Department of Labor website says, if we temporarily reduce our employee hours due to COVID-19, then employees may be eligible for UI benefits. But these claims will be charged against the employer's account. And this person is saying that they assume that this means experience rating. What if we have not submitted an application for short-time compensation? What happens then? So that's one question. But then it also receives another question on how do we protect? Another question is, how do we protect our employer rating during this time? So if you could just provide an update on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely say if there's a specific portion on our website, we've probably provided further information on the experience rating piece. We may have missed going back and adjusting a specific question. Yep. So, if the person can flag that for us, or Kyle, I mean, now that you've read the question, I know we'll go back and check on it. So that's probably just something that needs to be updated. We do have, I mentioned earlier, we have the capacity now to relieve employers of charges to their experience rating due to temporary layoffs or total layoffs because of COVID-19. Even in the situation where someone quits, those individuals who quit, they would be relieved of charges anyway. But we have covered all bases to be able to relieve employers of charges due to impacts of COVID-19, as long as the employer rehires or offers to rehire the individual upon the reopening of business, reopening of the economy within a reasonable time. So we do have that capacity to do that. A few other aspects of the question that I'll just touch on briefly. An employer can reduce their individual's hours, and that individual will be eligible for part-time unemployment, or partial unemployment, I should say. We did operate a program called STC, or short time compensation, and it was a program that would provide benefits to people if an employer reduced their hours but maintained the individual on payroll for part-time work. And we have suspended that program, and it is set to expire on July 1. Now, the reason that we suspended the program and it's set to expire is because it became duplicative. We have the capacity already to provide someone with partial unemployment benefits if an employer reduces their hours. So an employer does not need an STC plan. They don't need to apply for an STC plan in order to reduce their employees' hours to part-time. When they do that, their employee will then be eligible for unemployment benefits to help make up the difference in loss in hours and loss in wages. And the STC program was very bureaucratic. It was an administrative burden on behalf of employers and the department. And that's one of the main reasons that the department didn't support the program. And we have advised people that the individuals can already collect benefits under partial unemployment, and they don't need an STC plan to do so. So for employers out there, if you reduce your employees' hours, they will be eligible to file for partial unemployment. They would do that in the same way that they file for regular unemployment, and they would just report to the department on their weekly claim. They report their hours worked and the wages earned, when the wages are earned, not when they're paid, and then we would reduce their unemployment benefits accordingly based on their part-time work. So again, no need for STC. They can reduce people's hours, then they can collect partial unemployment already. And similar to a layoff or a temporary layoff, the benefits that are paid out, if it's due to COVID-19 or impacts of COVID-19, we have the ability to relieve employers of those charges. We have that statutory authority, and we will look to make sure our website is updated if it needs to be to reflect that. Just lastly, I'll just say same thing with the question of how to protect yourself or how to protect your experience rating. At this point, we're not asking employers to do anything because the charges that are going against or the benefits that are being paid out will not impact an employer's experience rating until July of 2021. So yeah. July of next year. So we have time to get information out to employers to let us know in what circumstances people should be relieved. And again, we have the authority to relieve employers because of the impacts of COVID-19.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that, Cam. So just kind of moving through the questions. Sounds like on the last call, Cam, you had talked about reimbursable employers, stating that we expected reimbursable employers to receive 50% charge relief, but that we didn't know what the framework of that would look like. Can you just provide an update, if any, on reimbursable employers, just kind of where we stand? I'd received a few questions on reimbursable.
Yep. So I'll mention again for reimbursable employers, and for those who may not know, a reimbursable employer is different than a taxable employer in that a reimbursable employer pays back the UI trust fund dollar for dollar the benefits that are charged against them, as opposed to paying in unemployment taxes. Based on Vermont law, there are only a subset of employer types that can be reimbursable. Specifically, it is state and local governments, as well as some nonprofit organizations can be reimbursable. So for those employers, in the Federal CARES Act, there's a section that allows for 50% of the charges going to the reimbursable employer to be relieved in the event it's a layoff because of COVID-19. Now, we know that it's in the CARES Act, and we have signed an agreement with USDOL to administer that provision. What we don't have to date is guidance from USDOL about how we administer that provision, because the money will be coming from the federal government. So we're not sure if a reimbursable employer is required to pay their entire contribution amount and then apply for and receive a refund from the department, or if we are simply to reduce their contribution amount by 50% and then get the recoupment from federal dollars on behalf of those reimbursable employers. So we don't yet know how to administer that provision, but know that it is there. We have already assigned the agreement with the U.S. Department of Labor to place that provision in effect, and we're just waiting on guidance from USDOL on how to actually roll it out, how to administer it according to their guidelines. So as soon as we have that information, we'll be working through it as quickly as possible. We've received 3 different pieces of guidance from USDOL over the past week, and I imagine that's one of the other ones that will be coming out soon, and we'll be letting people know as soon as it comes out, as soon as we're able to read it, digest it, understand it. We'll be getting that information out to the public to let reimbursable employers know what the next steps are.
Great. Just kind of, again, just continuing to move through to get to as many questions as we can. So Cam, will employers who receive PPP, which I believe is being administered through ACCD, to pay wages to their employees, will that be in conflict for their employees who receive UI? So I guess Mike had kind of talked to this, or the commissioner had kind of spoken to this on the last call that we had with Commissioner Joan Goldstein about the eligibility for other programs. I'm not sure if you have any, if you want to just kind of repeat that information for folks on this call. And
Yep.
Certainly we can refer them to the previous as well.
Yeah, I would definitely refer to the previous town hall. I would also ask the employer or advise the employer to reach out to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development on the administration of that program. We at the Department of Labor do not administer it, and I know it's a little bit of a tricky balance, because I believe the funding stream is going through the Small Business Association. So, but that's not administered by us. What I can tell you is, if an individual, and then this goes back to one thing I said at the beginning of this town hall, where I think it would greatly benefit the department if employers are notifying us when they continue to pay their employees if they find out their employee is also filing for unemployment benefits. Unemployment benefits are only available to people who have lost their job or who have had their hours reduced so that they see a decrease in wages and income. So the unemployment program isn't designed for people, and people aren't eligible if they haven't lost their job, if they are continuing to be paid their full wage by their employer. Now, we know that some people will try to do that. They may be receiving a full wage from their employer, and they may try to file for unemployment and take advantage in some instances of the overload that we're currently experiencing. And we don't have the traditional integrity checks in the system, the checks and balances to ensure that people who aren't eligible aren't receiving benefits. So we want to make sure that the people who are eligible are able to contact us and are able to get the benefits that they need, while the people who are not eligible aren't bogging down the system and thereby preventing other people from receiving the assistance that they need. So if an employer is continuing to pay their employees at the full salary rate or the full rate of pay, and the employer is going to be using the PPP program or some other type of assistance in order to make up for that or supplement that, we need to be aware of it. And so if an employer is going down that road and they know that their employees are filing for UI, that's where we would ask you to reach out to us. We have, emails that the employer can simply email us on our website and just let us know. We have a fraud tip on our website. An employer can go in and file there. That would be anonymous. And we wouldn't reach back out if you didn't provide us contact information, if we didn't need further information. So that's where we still need the employer community to assist us in administering these programs during this time. So to go back to the question, if there's specific information needed about the PPP program, I would direct them to ACCD. But please know that from a UI perspective, if someone is collecting their full paycheck, they are not eligible for unemployment because we wouldn't see that as a separation from employment, and therefore they would not be eligible for regular unemployment. They wouldn't be eligible for the additional $600, and we're asking employers to help us ensure the integrity of our program so we can ensure the people who need the benefits are actually getting it, and the people who aren't eligible aren't receiving a benefit that they're not eligible for.
That's great. And Cam, I guess I would just direct folks to our website. If they aren't, familiar, we do have a section as you scroll down for UI for employers. So I would certainly direct them to that location on the website. Just as we kind of move through, another question coming in, I am looking for an explanation as to how reduced hours as reported by an employee will be verified by the employer. I think that's just kind of the verification process for reduced hours. So if you could
I can add a little bit to that, Kyle. So we have these, it kind of goes back to what I was saying a second ago about the checks and balances, the integrity that we have built into the UI program. If an individual is collecting partial unemployment benefits, we ask them on the weekly claim, what were the hours you worked? What were the wages that you earned during this week of filing? What we then do is we take that and we cross-match those filings with the wage reports that are submitted by employers on a quarterly basis. And we do this every day in our program to ensure integrity, to ensure that people who are filing for partial unemployment are reporting the hours that the employer is reporting. For those individuals who there's a hit or the information doesn't match, we then have a team of staff who go out and do an investigation. They reach out to employers, ask for wage verification information in order to ensure that the people that are filing are reporting accurately. Now, right now, as of today, we have those staff members assisting with claimants. But as we move forward, throughout the year, and as we're working to ensure integrity in the system, auditing our programs as we move forward, that's traditionally how we would validate, is cross-matching what the claimant reported versus what the employer reported on their wage and contribution report to make sure they match.
Great. So another question, if a colleague is collecting, a couple questions on the CARES Act regarding the $600 weekly benefit additional, which we've started rolling out, I know, as you said at the top. If a colleague is collecting unemployment for reduced hours, will they still receive the additional $600? And then Rhonda asks, if we can bring back people part-time, will this affect their $600 extra unemployment check? I know that it will affect their regular unemployment. I guess if you have any clarification, just add onto eligibility of the additional $600 benefit, that would be great.
Sure. Yes, so we have been informed by U.S. Department of Labor. One of the things we've gotten clarification on is about the $600, who's eligible, who's not eligible. And what we have been told is if the individual is eligible for even $1, they will receive the additional $600. So For employers who reduce their staff to part-time, it will not affect their ability to collect the additional $600. For employers who want to bring their employees back for part-time, it will not affect their collection of the $600. If they are eligible for an unemployment insurance benefit amount, they will receive the additional $600. Now the additional $600 only goes through the week of July 25th. After the week of July 25th, that program, that is the end date of that program.
Great. Yeah, thanks. I think that's just helpful for folks. It looks like we've gotten quite a few questions on that. Cam, I don't know if you're aware. I know some information was sent out to employers this afternoon from the SIDES program through the Department of Labor. Just had a couple of questions about the email UI sides_system@labor.state.vt.us as to whether or not that was a valid email address or if it was a scam. I know that was sent. If you want to address that, just to this group, I know we'll be sending out some information later today.
Yeah, so it is a valid email. We have a program called SIDES. It's actually a federal program that the department works with employers through in some instances. It allows the transmission of the separation information electronically instead of via paper. And some employers, usually it's employers who work through a third party for handling their separation information, their HR, UI, HR information essentially. We did have an issue in processing information last night, and it did kick out an email message to those employers. So we are working to both resolve the problem that created the issue and also trying to draft a quick email out to the employers who were impacted to say, we're aware of it. It was a valid email, but you do not need to respond to it at this point in time. So I just want to say it was a valid email from the department, but because of the processing issue we had, we're asking employers not to respond to it. And as we resolve the processing issue that we ran into last night, they will get further information subsequent, and we will be sending out a clarification email to those employers that were impacted today.
Great. Allison asks, with the stay-at-home order in place, many HR reps are working from home. Are all wage verification questions submitted by email, or are some of those mailed? I don't go to the office, but there is a lot coming through from us, the Department of Labor, and I want to be sure we are not preventing someone from getting paid. So I guess this kind of just goes back to how the department is communicating with employers for some of this verification.
Sure. So twofold. We are sending out the separation forms to employers at their given point of contact with the department, the address that they've provided to us. So any separation forms are likely going to, your place of business that you've had with the department. So I would advise you of that. Again, as we mentioned at the top, we understand that employers are closed in a lot of instances. They have their people teleworking where they can. They're likely picking up their mail, once a week, if at all. And so we're just asking them to get back the separation forms as quickly as possible when they can. Again, understanding that it would be of great benefit to us if they're providing that as quickly as possible. Now, on the wage information that was kind of alluded to there, we are, as also was mentioned at the beginning, we are reaching out to employers to try and gather wage information when necessary to make individuals eligible for unemployment benefits. So just very quickly, so the employers understand how this works, when somebody files for unemployment benefits, they have to have a certain amount of wages in what's called their base period in order to make them eligible. The thought process is it demonstrates an attachment to the labor force. And so the individual has to meet certain monetary thresholds within the base period. The base period right now, it looks at the first 4 of your last 5 completed calendar quarters. So when you think about that, first 4 of the last 5, we're looking at calendar year 2019. However, the department has 3 checks that we do to try and make people eligible. So we look at the first 4 of the last 5, which would be calendar year 2019. If you're not monetarily eligible based on that, we shift the quarters forward 1 quarter at a time. So instead of looking at calendar year 2019, we would shift it forward. We'd look at second quarter 2019 through the first quarter of 2020. Now, as I'm sure a lot of you intuitively recognize, the first quarter of 2020 isn't due until the end of April. So for a lot of employers, they may not have submitted that wage report yet. And that's where we're running into with a lot of people that we're trying to help determine their eligibility, is because they may not have enough wages in the system under the first check. So when we go to do the second check, looking at the first quarter of 2020, we don't have their wages because the employer hasn't submitted the wage report yet because it's not due. So that's where we have all of our auditing team. They are picking up the phone, they're reaching out to the employers at their point of contact with the department. So whomever the employer has designated as their point of contact, if that's your HR representative, if you've provided us with their email or their office phone number, we're probably calling the office if you haven't forwarded that phone number on. So that's where I think employers can really help, is making sure that you're either checking those emails or you're checking your voicemails of whomever your point of contact is with the Department of Labor Tax Division. Again, UI taxes, not the tax department, the UI tax section, the employer services unit, if you will. Whoever your point of contact is with us to handle those contribution matters, that's who we're reaching out to. And so we're trying to get wages to help these people get the benefits and get some money so they can get food for their families. So that's another one of those pieces where employers can really assist us with helping claimants to help further along these claims. So to answer the question, if you can just ensure that you're checking your voicemails, you're checking your mail as quickly as you can, and you have your point of contact with the UI division aware that we may be reaching out for some of those people who maybe work part-time to determine their eligibility. That's where assistance is most needed.
Great, thanks, Cam. I think we have time for just a couple more questions before we wrap up here. Sharon asks, with the stay-at-home order being extended to May 15th, if you had previously laid off employees and given them a return to work date prior, but continue to remain closed, do we as employers need to do anything more? I think just providing just an update from their perspective on the return to work date.
At this time, we're not asking employers to do anything to update or address the return to work dates, because we have, I mentioned this on one of the previous town halls, because we have waived all work search requirements in the system. We are not asking for return to work date information. The return to work date is usually, it's used by us to ensure that for temporary layoffs, the employer doesn't lose their skilled workforce. So if they have a temporary layoff within a certain period of time with a return to work date or a recall date, those individuals are waived from work search, so they don't have to, so the employer doesn't lose their employees. Because we've waived work search for all individuals, We don't need the return to work date information at this time. We are aware that some notice likely generated from our mainframe computer, some of these notices are automated. And so some of your staff may have received a notice saying that the employer needs to go in and update the return to work date. Please disregard that notice. We do not need the updates at this time. Employees or claimants have been waived of the work search, and so we don't need that information to date. If the individual is running into any problems filing because of it, please just reach out and we can get their claim resolved as quickly as possible.
Great. I think last question. Certainly we have received a overwhelming, response from everybody, but just in terms of best ways to contact the department, I'll scroll through and kind of put up some contact information, the unemployment employer services line, and then from a workforce development perspective, Cindy Robillard's contact information. Cam, I don't know if off the top of your head, that email that folks should contact regarding any updates for other programs that they are participating in. I had a couple of questions that they couldn't find it immediately on the website. I can say, Cam, if you don't know it off the top of your head, we will surely update it to make it more aware on the contact UI page by the end of the day today for sure. I don't know if you know it off the top of your head, but certainly feel free to reach out to the contact information on this page as well. But I guess, Cam, if you just want to provide an overview of best ways to reach out to the department for various needs, I think that would be great for folks.
Yeah, I think for employers, we have the employer services line up there. And as I mentioned on a previous town hall, I'll mention again, please know that our staff are working from home as well, and we are trying to work with our telecommunications provider to get some of these phone lines, directed to staff from their homes. A lot of these lines are quote unquote, hunt lines, and so they ring on multiple people's desks at once, and so it's the technology is a little bit trickier for us to route those calls to staff who are working remotely. So you have the employer services line there. Know that we have staff throughout the day calling in, checking voicemails, calling employers back, and we'll get back to you as quickly as possible. As far as an email, the best email address for employers, I'd want to check with our employer services staff to figure out, I would hate for employers to just get bogged down into the emails that we're receiving from claimants. We try to recognize that, employers are trying to operate a business, and we try to reach back out to them as quickly as possible as well. And so I think it'd probably be best, Kyle, for us to just provide that from the website so I don't give out incorrect information.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. As Cam was saying, as with everything, and I echo this in our claimant-focused town halls in the mornings as well, the first and best resource for you as employers and for your employees is going to be the Department of Labor website. We, as much as there isn't always as up-to-date as it needs to be, we try to update that as much as possible to keep the information current and up to date. We went through a little bit of some changes over the last 24 hours on our homepage, just to try to make that a little bit more navigatable isn't really a word, but I'm going to say it anyway. Easier to navigate to try to find what we were hearing from claimants and employers, and just to make it easier to navigate as a whole for the website. So first and best resource is going to be the website. We do host these town calls to try to answer any questions, and we do appreciate all of you taking the time to visit and to jump on and listen to Cameron and our previous speakers as well to speak as well. So as I said at the top, this has been recorded. We will be posting this onto our YouTube channel at some point within hopefully the next 24 hours. And feel free to reach out to the department with any further questions as well. Again, Cam, thanks for taking the time. Look forward to chatting with you again soon. I will say, as a plug for Thursday, we'll be transitioning a little bit. We'll actually be focusing on workers' compensation and worker safety amidst COVID-19. So please feel free to check out labor.vermont.gov/calendar for more on all of these town hall events. And with that, Cam, thanks for taking the time again, and thanks to everybody for joining us. And with that, I don't know if you have any last words, Cam, that you want to say.
No, I'll just say happy to be here. I know it's a very difficult time for all involved out there, employers, struggling not only to ensure their individuals are taken care of, but also for self-employed people who are have no mechanism of income. And please just know that here at the Department of Labor, we are doing everything we can. I know that for the people who can't get through, it's frustrating, and it just seems like there's no relief and no end in sight. And I would just add that we are with you, and we are doing everything we can. We continue to do more each and every day, bringing on additional staff, reaching out and hiring contractors, training people. We're working through the weekends. And just know that our staff are great people, and they're here to assist as best we can. And we want to help everyone in as quickly as possible. And so I appreciate everybody being on the town hall. I think these are great ways to communicate. I've found them to be very helpful. Hopefully you do as well. And I look forward to being on them moving forward.
Well, Cam, great. Thanks again so much. And I'll just say, everybody, hope you have a great rest of your week. Thanks again.